welcome to Spirit of Nature Art, and we are back in this altered book journal here doing another cutout page just to complement the ones here that are already starting to build up. And I wanted a really quick project. These pages here that I'm fiddling around with now, I've got a considerable project planned for, but I didn't want to get my teeth stuck into something that was going to take me a long time. So I flipped through those pages, left them available to come back to, and I'm just sticking together a few more pages here so that I can do a much quicker project. So just pinning those other pages out of the way, and this is the project I am planning. I just whizzed through my illustrated bird book and found this amazing sea eagle and just thought, do you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do with you yet, but you are amazing. So I'm just using my scissors just to cut all the excess off so that I can then go in with my little mini craft knife and fussy cut all around the edge there so I can get that detail really nice. And yeah, not really knowing quite what I want to do, just knowing I wanted a quick project and deciding this eagle was going to be part of it. So I'm just fiddling around here because I actually didn't really know whether I only wanted to have the cutout on the right hand wing or whether I wanted him to sit in the middle and be cut out completely, which is what I decided to go for in the end. So I'm just kind of using my nail just to score the middle line there so that when I pop the glue on, it's easy for me to re-find that position again. So I'm just using some tacky glue here, way too much tacky glue I have to say. I like the tacky glue for this kind of thing because it means I can move it around and make sure it's in the right position. It doesn't set too quickly. I've got some time there to be able to fiddle around with it, and because I put so much glue on there, I'm having to dab away all the excess that comes out as I smooth him down to the page. Fabulous. Now he's stuck down, I want to go in and cut him out again. So just going in now and taking away all the excess of those book pages. So starting off at the top there, taking away that big part at the top, and then going back in and doing the details around the wing, and then repeating that on the other side. So what we have is our lovely sea eagle bursting out of the center of the spread. Like that. Fantastic. And now, because I've cut round those edges there, we've got white paper visible, so I'm just going in with my distress ink and just colouring all those edges so that we can kind of give it that more finished look. And then I had no idea what I was doing when I started out on this, and so as I was busy cutting out my sea eagle, I thought, you know what, I'm going to use my jelly press to make a background to stick on. So this stencil here, I love this stencil. Actually, I've got this in 2 different sizes because I love it so much. But I kind of felt that sea eagle, he kind of looked quite mythical, quite magical. So I thought this would create a really nice kind of bit of an abstract background, but also because it's a sea eagle, I loved the swirls that come in it. So I'm literally just playing around with the jelly press and seeing what I can do. So I've started off with, I think I've got distress paints there. So I've got Salvaged Patina and I think antique bronze. Just using my brayer to spread that out and mix it a little bit, and then popping the stencil on using a spare bit of tissue paper there just to remove the excess between the stencil there, because I want the second print, not the first print on my jelly press. So just moving the stencil down there so that I can get a whole page, and then pulling that off. And I'm using tissue to pull the prints because I still want that book page to show through. So just seeing how they come out, and each one I do, I'm doing 2 of the same, because you'll notice that jelly plate that I'm using there is the same kind of size as the book pages. So whatever I do on one, I'm going to repeat it twice so that I can put the 2 together behind the sea eagle. But I'm just experimenting, and that's what I love about the jelly press. I honestly can play with the jelly press for hours, just keeping on going, trying different things, seeing what comes up, because you can never entirely predict how it's going to come up when you're working with the jelly press, and that's part of the fun of it. So I just play around a little bit with different paints. I use some other acrylics as well as the distress paints, also using the excess paint on that stencil there just to take a bit of a rubbing and see how that comes out. And all the bits I don't use are going to be great collage pieces for other projects. So as well as using the distress paints, I use some other acrylics here, and also do different types. So I'm using an acrylic paint here to pull that pattern off, which means I'll get a more opaque look. So I'm just playing around, and whatever I've got at the end of that play session, I will then see what fits nicely with. I like that, it's really nice, but it's more opaque, so you're not going to get so much of the page coming through afterwards. If you've never used a jelly plate before, there are obviously thousands and thousands and thousands of videos on YouTube. Go and have a little look. It is so much fun, and it's one of those things you can just get yourself lost in and have a proper play without worrying too much about what's going to come out at the end of it. And then I decide to use some distress inks as well. Rather than just using acrylics, I like using the distress inks and oxides on my jelly plate. I'm literally just going straight in with the inks, straight onto the jelly plate, moving it around with the brayer. I'm using Unchartered, Marina and Rusty Hinge there. Again, same thing, I'm just taking the excess off and repositioning the stencil, doing the same again, and then going in with a piece of tissue paper to pull that print. So I had 3 nice kind of pairs that I'm just kind of testing out here to see what looks nicest behind my sea eagle. And do you know what? I think this is my favourite. I love this just because it's got that mythical feeling, but also that kind of slightly misty sea kind of feeling to it as well. So I'm just kind of tearing some of the edges here so that they're not kind of straight, and then using my matte gel medium to stick that onto the page. That's why I like using tissue, because yeah, we can see straight through, but it's really easy to adhere it. The reason I tore that center bit there is because when you've got rough edges like that, it's so much easier to overlap them, and you don't get this harsh line. I'm also, as you can see, overlapping that center kind of part of the page as well, just to add a little bit of extra strength there, so that, because that bit's going to be a little bit of a weak spot, because every time the book opens, that spine's going to have a little bit of pressure put on it. So just doing the same on the other side, matte gel medium underneath, and then on the top, just spreading that out, getting rid of as many of the kind of creases as I can, but I'm not too fussed, I don't mind the odd crease in there. And same on that side, just overlapping it over the central spine there, and just tearing that and putting it across. And because I'm tearing rather than cutting, those edges just seamlessly disappear into each other. And I'm using the excess, the other bits I had left over to cover the back of the rest of the wings. So I've just put an old cereal packet in between those wings there, so when I paint the glue on, it's not going onto the other page. Same thing, matte gel medium underneath, and then on top as well to seal it. And here we go, now just cutting away all the excess of that spare tissue there. And guess what? I now have to go back and cut out again with my craft knife. Now, if I had had a plan to start with, I probably could have prevented myself having to cut out 3 different times, but I didn't. I was just figuring this out as I went along, so not a problem. I'm going back in with that Uncharted Marina now and using that distress ink to edge the back and really sort of start to define that from the rest of the page. And I also wanted to go in and pull out some of those kind of lovely swirls in the background. So I've chosen some Derwent Inktense pencils that match that Unchartered Marina and Rusty Hinge that I used for the background jelly print, and just going in with the pencil and just drawing around some of those swirls and then activating it with water. Partly just to, to make some of those pop, bring some of them out from the page, but also I just find this so therapeutic. Just, drawing in and activating with water and just kind of pulling that colour out a little bit to fade into the page. It's one of those things, shading like this, it's a meditation for me. So I always want to do that on every page if I can. And then going in and highlighting that edge there. So when I stuck the tissue paper down to the page, rather than cut the edges straight, I tore them so that we had that nice kind of aged look. So I'm just enhancing that with one of those distress pencils. And now I want our eagle to pop off the page, so a little bit of shading behind him. So again, I'm using the Uncharted Marina, just going in with a blending tool, and I'm building the layers up. So I just kind of keep going back over it and building it up until I'm happy with the depth of that colour there. Because it's distress ink, there is a that transparent kind of quality to it, so I'm not going to really hide what's underneath it, but it just adds that bit of shading. You can see our eagle pops off the page a little bit more with that kind of shadow behind him. And I'm just going in here, I'm using some of that antique bronze distress paint, and I'm edging. So where before I went round with the distress to take away all of that kind of harsh white line, I thought it would be quite nice to have a little bit of kind of bronze and gold sparkling on him, because he feels quite mythical. And with the leftover paint there, I'm just adding some gold splatters to the bottom and now some white splatters, just to kind of make it feel like he's coming up from the sea. There's that kind of foamy froth coming up from the bottom there. So just adding some of those splatters there, some of which are going to react with the distress ink, and that's absolutely fine. And then just to make him pop even more, I'm going in with my, I think that's the black distress, black Derwent Inktense pencil, but you could use anything, Stabilo or pencil, whatever you've got. And I'm just going in and deepening some of those shadows, that helps to not just deepen the shadows, but it helps the highlights to pop as well. So just going in and just going over the shadows that are already there and deepening them even more. Now it's time for my sentiment. So I've got my cute little stamping set here. I just got this off eBay years ago. And again, bringing in that Uncharted Marina distress ink, and using that to complement the background, and stamping my sentiment straight on to the page, which is a little bit easier because I can see the lines of the text underneath. So that's helping me to keep things nice and straight. And then I don't want that floating on the page, so I'm just going back in with one of those same pencils that I used before, same colour, and just adding a little bit of shading underneath it just to ground it onto the page. And that, I believe, is it. I love this guy. It was an afternoon, sat down, just being able to play around, no plan, and so pleased with how he came out.